Hi, welcome to the Stitch TV show. I'm Lynn.
And I'm Pam. We're happy you're joining us today. The Stitch is an online quilting talk show.
It is.
The perfect soundtrack for your sewing room. Join us as we chat about current topics in the quilt world, techniques to improve your own projects, and fun stories about our quilts.
Our episodes come out twice a month, complemented by virtual sew-ins and podcasts. You can learn more about us at thestitchtvshow.com.
Today, we are accompanied by the quilt that Lynn made for our fabric challenge. We'll be talking about Lynn's design process and some tips for picking the right color fabrics for your own quilts. So, Lynn, what is up? Do you have New Year's resolutions?
I was thinking about this last night because that's when I think about what we're going to do for the show. I think my New Year's resolution for quilting kind of deal is going to be to redefine neutrals. And I know I've kind of talked about this last year or whatever, but I really want to avoid using traditional neutral, and I'm using the quote fingers, traditional neutrals like whites, creams, grays.
But isn't that more that neutral is in fact a scientific term for a lack of color? Do you not mean background fabric choices?
Well, I just want to, I think that, and probably this is more connotative meaning than denotative meaning, because when you look at a quilt, you look at it, denotative meaning would be direct dictionary definition.
Right.
Connotative is agreed upon
context,
in context. So in context of looking at a quilt, you can say, well, the teal is the neutral in this.
No, the teal is the background.
It's the neutral.
It's not a neutral, it's the background.
It's playing the part as neutral. It's background, but it's playing the part as neutral. Because it's the constant that's in the quilt.
BT she totally stole this from me because I was like, I'm going to avoid using plain white anymore.
Well, no, and I thought that
That's good. I'm going to do that and talk about it first. It sounds like it's my idea. Thanks, Lynn.
It's totally not true.
Okay, so we will not see
for a while.
Plain white, cream, taupe, beige, black from you this year as a neutral / background fabric.
I'm going to try to avoid it. Although I do have one quilt started that has a tan background that I'm not going to stop working on because you'll kill me.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that one.
That would totally be a murder.
Yes, it would be. Because I have to have the pattern done soon.
I can't go whole hog on that because one of the ones I'm designing will also need a white or a black.
I think it's just, us avoiding it.
I love a good color-rich quilt, though.
I have decided I really like a lot of pattern.
Shocking.
I know. Scary, shocking. I like a lot of pattern. And when you see the hand piecing one I've done, there's lots of pattern in it. So
how many banana emoticons would we use to describe
11 frillion. 11 frillion. That would be bananas. 11 frillion bananas.
Got it. That's a lot of bananas.
It is. Exactly. But it's done. From the standpoint of all of my hand piecing work on it's done. So.
Okay.
So do you want to talk about what I did to design this?
Yeah. Speaking of bananas.
It's not really. Okay, so because you in your design process, you actually went to EQ7 and started designing. I cut fabric. I literally just started cutting some fabric up and went, there's three things that kind of went on in my head at the same time. Mm-hmm. One, I was watching Casino Royale with Daniel Craig, so I was doing a little James Bond. And two, we had these fabrics, and I thought, diamonds would look really good. So I called the quilt Diamonds Are Forever so that, it would have this James Bond-esque. And three, I had to get this done. Now, we bought...
Shouldn't that be number one?
No. So we bought this fabric in September. Let's be honest. Hmm? Do you know when I started? December 1st. I got it done December 8th. Wait, was the 8th? Yes.
Yeah, the 8th was the meeting.
8th.
Well, done.
I got it done.
Got to work on the binding.
I got it. Let's not be surprised there. I got it done in 7 days. So, and of course, I put it off all those 7, for the 2 months prior to those 7 days because I like pressure, which drives you nuts. Apparently,
Not my jam.
It's all about the journey. It's all about the journey. Just saying. So I started cutting the fabric and decided, well, we should do some diamonds. Oh, and I bought a new ruler that I wanted to try out, which was a diamond
Thank goodness I'm sitting.
ruler, the Diamond Rex. It's called Diamond Rex ruler, and it's by
Deb Tucker.
Deb Tucker, yes. And it's a great ruler, and it works perfect for this quilt. So I decided I wanted the fat quarters that we had that were a lot of pattern to be in my diamonds. And then I wanted to have the oranges be my pop colors. So I definitely wanted to use my teal as my background neutral. And I thought, well, let's work with 8 because 8 inches can be broken up in a lot of different ways. So I decided I'd make 1 by 2 inch diamonds, 2 by 4 inch diamonds, 3 by 6 inch diamonds, and 5 by 8 inch diamonds. So those are all kind of multiples that I can work with to make blocks that will equal 8 inches tall. And because they're all, even numbers, I knew I could figure out how to make it come out even with math. So honestly, I cut 1 strip of each of the fat quarters for the 1 inch size, and then the medium size, which is this size. And then I cut a strip for the larger sizes, which are this size, this right here. And then the big size, I only cut out of the lightest color of orange because I wanted that to be my centers and to pop that. So that's kind of where I started. And once I started cutting, then I was like, well, let's use it. I knew I wanted to use the teal for the background. And the reason the quilt is this size is because I ran out of teal. I didn't have enough teal. I was done. And that's how I determined how big it was, is because at that point I didn't have enough to make more diamonds. So I ran out. So that's how much you get. There you go. And then, so my design process so I made a bunch of diamonds. So I made a bunch of the 1 inch. I made a bunch of the 2 inch and a bunch of the 3 inch. And then I just started putting it on the design wall until it looked good. And then just kept rearranging them until I liked it. And then you were like, ooh. Well, then you think about it because, you're a 3 inch. You're going to have 3 1 inch on top of that to give you the 8 inches. And so it all works out mathematically. And I was thinking when I was doing it that it was kind of like, that quilt I pulled off my design wall.
Yes.
The Jackie Gearing quilt, which was a great technique. But it was just haphazard. And not haphazard. I mean, it's an improvisational piecing technique. But it doesn't have standard math sizes. And this had standard math sizes that I could work with. So it allowed me to do that technique in a traditional format with math. So the pattern is going to be complicated. Agreed. Agreed. But that being said, it's, my design process was definitely, well, let's just cut the fabric and see what happens. Does that give you hives?
No.
No?
Yeah.
Do you just cut fabric and see what happens?
No.
Ever? No. Nope.
Nope.
This is why she named nope.
Nope.
I cannot.
I mean, the times that I have, it has been, gosh, I have a lot of pink scraps that I should trim up to size. Or I could sew them all together and make a big piece of made fabric and turn that into something.
Yeah, that's true.
That's been
the
rare time where I've like, I'm just going to sew stuff together and see where it takes me. Like, no, I need to know where we're going. I need to Google it ahead of time so I know if I have to drive on the wrong side of the road.
No.
Or the other side of the road. Or do I know where the building is that I'm going to? Do I know what it looks like when I get there? So the Google Maps may tell me I'm there, but I'm like, this is an empty field. And also there's a lake. So like I need a plan.
Yeah, no.
So if I had designed this, I would have gotten graph paper and I would have started
Yeah.
I may have even done like the old cheesy furniture planning thing where I had the rectangles that measured and then just started laying those out in the room to see.
Yeah,
That would have been me.
I didn't do that. I literally put it up on my design wall and just kept moving stuff around. And then, our production staff, Ray, I panicked like in November, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't have an idea. Although I did kind of have this idea in the back of my head. I was afraid, or in my brain, I was like, it needs to be a big quilt. And then when she gave me permission for it not to be a big quilt, I was like, oh, well, now I'm happy. So I didn't want it to be, I was like, I guess you get in your head, well, quilts have to be a certain size or whatever. I was like, no, this can be a wall quilt.
Yeah, it depends on what you're using it for.
Yeah. So, and I like working smaller. So I was like, well, and then that's where, and then what helped was I didn't have a ton of time to
second guess.
Because I put myself in a time crunch situation. So literally, if this quilt could talk to you, it has seen the entire Hobbit series, the entire Lord of the Rings series extended version during the cutting and sewing process. That's how much I cut for a while. I sewed some diamonds up. I'd put them on the wall. I'd cut some more. I'd sew some more diamonds up, put them on the wall, rearrange, cut some more. So, the last ones I did were the oranges.
And that was because you knew you had to fill in, or?
Because I ran out of teal.
Right.
So I couldn't sew any more teal because I had no more teal fabric. That's what determined that. I sewed as much teal as I could sew. And I actually used absolutely every diamond except for 3 that I had made. So those can go on the label when that happens.
2019, here we go. So how did you decide on the quilting design?
I wanted there to be consistency within the sizes of the diamonds. So I knew every small diamond would have the exact same quilting in it. That was teal. And then every medium one would have the exact same quilting in it for every other medium one. And then the other larger mediums would have that of the teal. So the quilting became easier because once the design was determined for each size, I just had to remember what to do in that size diamond. So that's what gives it a lot of interest, because there's not, you've got 2 little ones next to this size, and the quilting's different, but there's consistency because every time you see a little one, they're the same quilting. Until I got to the orange, because the orange was going to be my pops, and I used the rule of 3, odd numbers add interest. Mm-hmm. So, and then I put it some, asymmetrical in the look so that you would flow through when you're looking at it. And I wanted the lightest orange to grab your attention. So that's why that became the only place I used that. Then I treated all the orange together as one quilting design. So this one has a rainfall of feathers, like they're all down in every orange one. This one had the center feathers, and then I did some ruler work going out with some pebbling, and left some not quilted because I wanted that pop. I wanted that dimension. And then this one, I just did a different one with vertical lines to let it stand out. So it was treating all the orange together as one piece compared to the background, which was different. So, but my design process, well, I thought about doing this in EQ7, and EQ7 is tough when you're doing off-grid stuff. So unless you have and I didn't have time, unless you have way too much time to, set those in EQ7. Mm-hmm. Plus, I didn't know what I wanted. It could have told me when I was going to run out of teal. That would have been helpful.
No. Because it's not good at that sometimes. Sometimes it way overestimates, and sometimes it's like, ooh, sorry, you need another inch.
So all the clues that I put up was me trimming these diamonds, to the right size to make sure.
Yeah, my clue would have been dinner plates.
Dinner plates. That would have been a good clue, though.
I do have a picture of it.
So
Here's the 3 size dinner plates I used.
but I think that, and we've talked about this a little bit. I think that this process that I've kind of developing or whatever is a really interesting technique in how to take a traditional block using math and make it a off-grid, modern-looking improvisational piece when it's not really improvisational piece.
Mm-mm.
It's very much, traditional diamond block kind of thing. But you can do it in all other, whatever you can put in that rectangle, as long as you're using those multiples of math kind of thing. So I did use math. Kind of. But there is a point where you're like, crud, I need 3 more little one. I have to admit, I did go back to the sewing machine going, I need some more, 1x2. That became the most popular one for me, the little 1x2s, because they fill in really well. Like when you needed those gaps to fill in where the other ones were too big or whatever. But it allowed me to, I don't know, I think it looks interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting.
For sure.
And it's not funny like Pam's is funny. Sorry, I didn't go funny. I went get it done, and then I ran out of fabric.
D-U-N done.
And then I ran out of fabric. And then at that point you're done because you're like, I'm out of fabric. I did panic because I forgot we could use another whatever for the binding. So I was like, I have enough to put this around the light orange around the binding, but I didn't like the look of, I thought it would detract of the.
You need the diamonds to float.
I needed that. So anyway, so that's my challenge piece. I thought it was fun. It's going to be a complicated.
Not according to your text.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst idea we ever had. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, it's true. But I think I'm always that in any process. Like we get in the middle, I'm like, why the heck did I do? I cooked for Thanksgiving. Whose idea was this? We should blame George Washington. We should not have, I'm just like.
Thanksgiving was before George Washington, I thought.
It was, technically.
Like, I don't know which president declared it an official holiday. That I don't know. Anyway.
Actually, I don't think that. Well, no, because George Washington wrote a letter to the. No, he did. He wrote a letter to the United States about Thanksgiving, a prayer, actually. It's actually really neat. I've read it. It's very good.
I'm tempted to just yell out Lafayette because of Hamilton right now. Lafayette.
She's just doing that because she listened to Hamilton once.
One time. That's all I remember. I really did appreciate the Drunk History episode with Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I watched that one again.
It's pretty good.
So James Bond, diamonds, and time crunch, and I got a new ruler. That's where this came from. And my head works weird.
So if you didn't have the ruler, could you do this?
Yeah, you could. I don't think it'd be as easy. You could paper piece it all.
It's a lot of paper.
It is a lot of paper.
It has a lot of tearing out of paper.
It is a lot of tearing out of paper. Yeah. I'm sure you could do it with other rulers. I'm just not as...
Yeah, you just have to work out the angles.
You have to work out the angles.
It's no Pythagorean theorem like mine was.
But the ruler worked great. I would definitely use the ruler again. And in the pattern, I will suggest that you use the ruler because that's definitely... And the ruler was fun. The ruler was easy to do.
Yeah, Deb Tucker's rulers are usually pretty good.
Very good. Yeah, exactly. So, but I like that it turned out like a modern look, and I like that the orange pops.
Yeah, orange. Shocking.
Shocking. I loved all the patterns in the fabrics. And I didn't fussy cut anything.
I was going to ask, it didn't look like you fussy cut anything.
Nope.
Because I would have thought for this particular fabric, we pointed out there's a tiny needle in it.
Yep, it shows up every once in a while.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, well.
I didn't fussy cut. I don't got time for that. I had 7 days. I had to get this done. I gotta.
But you could easily fussy cut and make it.
Yeah.
Make a little I Spy.
You can do that.
This
would be an interesting I Spy quilt for a kid. It's definitely wall hanging. I think it's like $42 42 by 47 or 41 by 47. It's not huge.
Yeah.
But definitely will.
Well, that's why you have mine for your comfy quilt. This one hangs behind you.
Yeah, there
and
you
you're like,
go.
nope, I'm too busy working on this thing. Nope.
But I did do it in 7 days. I mean, I did it, and that's quilting the whole thing in 7 days. So that's all I did. That's not true. I did some other stuff. I did. Because I had meetings and stuff.
Breathing,
so,
sleeping,
yeah,
eating.
breathing, sleeping, eating, complaining about like I'll never do another challenge quilt
Sending
again,
text messages.
crying to the production staff. Oh my God, this will never get done. Whose idea was this? Thank God. All she kept doing was like, that looks great. Good job. It's just enough to make me go, okay, I can do this. Okay.
I think she just got that like default loaded as a template to both of us. She's like, it looks great. And she said to me, and I'm like, what about that?
Did you even look at this? What? Like my first one I sent her was just one block all lined up, like the same size. This is it. This is all you're getting. I've used every fabric except for the red. And then I was like, dang it, I gotta use orange.
Yeah, you do.
So, but I liked that I saved the orange and it became important. I know people probably would have thought I would have used all orange. But
That would have been a little eye searing.
no.
Like, well, now we live on the surface of the sun. Enjoy it.
So I just made it important. But I think what we picked was a nice, warm, cool balance.
Go us.
Go us. Yay. And we're not doing another challenge for another year, at least.
Or if we do it smaller.
What is the smallest block you can make? Anyway, go ahead. So,
all right. Now we're going to take a quick look at Lynn's challenge quilt. It is back quarter friendly. The pattern to make your own version will be available on our pattern shop, shop.thestitchtvshow.com. So, Lynn, we have been talking about our challenge quilts.
We have.
Where we kind of picked fabric together. In fact, we picked bundles that other people had picked.
True.
How do you go about picking fabric when you design a quilt?
Well, I think that's the question. I mean, do you pick
Literally,
fabric?
I just asked it. Of course it's the question. Oh my God.
Okay.
Do you see what I have to work with?
It's really
Oh my
hard.
God.
Do you pick, but here, my question's better. So, do you pick your fabric before you pick your pattern, or do you pick your pattern and then pick your fabric?
It depends.
That was my point. So, if you have a pattern in mind, like you pick your fabric according to that pattern, correct?
Sometimes poorly, yes.
Or do you have fabric first and then go, oh my gosh, I'm so in love with this fabric.
And I only have 2 yards.
And I only have, no, that's never, I really am bad about that.
Which part? Math?
No, I can do math. This proves I can do math.
Yeah.
I can do math. It's that I don't, like, I'll run out of fabric and put myself in a bind because I didn't consider that.
That's an opportunity for a
to.
design choice.
I know it is. I know it is. So, do you pick your colors first? Or do you pick your fabric first, or do you pick your pattern first?
It depends on the purpose of the quilt.
Okay.
Frequently, I make quilts that are gifts for others. And rather than impose my own personal taste on people, sometimes I'm like, oh, I know they like this color. So then I will say, okay, it has to include this color.
Yeah.
But I also want to bring in something that I think looks good with it.
Right. I don't like it when people say, I want it made out of this. Then I'm like,
They never get that prescriptive with me. It's kind of like, I like teal or I like yellow.
Yeah.
You know, for example, I do infrequent commissions for a very select group of people, aka one person. And it's always baby quilts, so I know that they are a small, manageable size.
There you
and
go.
I usually am like, well, give me some guidance on like theme or color, or, you know,
I
And
don't
it's
like it
like-
when they give me a theme and I'm like, I don't like that.
Well, the theme is like travel, and they like neutrals. I'm like, oh, I could totally work with that. Versus, no
Winnie the
particular
Pooh.
theme.
It has to have Winnie the Pooh fabric.
I
in
never
it.
get that.
Yeah. I'm like, one,
That's one of the reasons.
it's really hard to find Winnie the Pooh fabric.
Well, that's one of the reasons I only do the commissions for this particular person, because her whole family is just sort of like, we just have a feeling they're going for, which is much easier than like, it must include
Yes.
this, and this Disney character together in one fabric. And you're like, well, that's crazy, and I can't do that.
Yeah. I'm doing a Peppa Pig quilt right now. It's big with the 5-year-olds. Peppa Pig is big with the 5-year-olds. So I'm working on a Peppa Pig. And I went to the store and I'd gone through all these other, like last year I did Frozen, and I did all these other, went through all the ones that were available at the quilt store. Well, there's Dory, there's The Secret Life of Pets, there's the Minions, and I got no. She didn't like any of those. I'm like, Peppa Pig. I found Peppa Pig. And Doc McStuffin is apparently a big deal.
Yes.
With the 5-year-old.
Now, Peppa Pig, what I appreciate about getting inspiration from cartoons is that they are frequently
bright colors,
easier to emulate in applique. So
They
you
are.
could do whatever
Yeah,
quilt pattern you wanted on the front, and then you could just mock up. Because you're not selling it. Don't do this if you're selling it. That's
if you're
violating
selling,
copyright.
yeah, you can't do that.
But if it's a gift, then
If it's a
Peppa
gift.
Pig's a fairly simplistic pig.
yes, yeah,
So
it
you
would
could
be
just
easy
do
to
one
mock
Peppa
up.
Pig on the front.
No, you know what I decided to do? I decided to use our Belinda pattern because I'm like, we wrote this. We should.
Yes,
We should use our patterns.
Yes.
So I thought,
Well,
and that's a great because
you get some
know,
nice
the-
big focus.
the focus, stuff works well with that.
Now, are you changing the size of it, or are you keeping it the
Yes.
same size?
No, a little
Smaller?
bit smaller.
Smaller? Yeah, that's the one, because I'm using it for the baby quilt that I'm doing too. But I'm like,
I'm making it a
smaller.
little bit bigger than the alternate ending,
Oh yeah,
but and here's how that got determined.
fabric.
Fabric. My sister wanted fleece on the back of it, and fleece is like 60 inches wide.
Yeah, you don't want to piece it. It's always very obvious.
So I'm like, well, it's got to be a little bit smaller than 60 inches wide because
Yep.
that's what goes on the back. So I did a yard and a half. That gave me 60 by 60, and I'm good. So it'll be a little smaller than that, like 55 probably.
Yeah.
Ish. Depends on how I can get that on, because I'm going to do it on the long arm. I'm not going to put batting in. If I use fleece, I'm not going to put batting in. If I use minky, I put batting in. But if I use fleece, I'm not. I know, crazy. It'll be okay. It's okay. It'll survive. It's going to get dragged through the mud. And, I mean, this is going to be this isn't this quilt. I'm just saying.
You know, Peppa Pig on the back.
There's no Peppa Pig on this one, baby. So when you're picking your pattern, that determines your fabric choices. If you've got a pattern first, that determines your fabric choices.
I pick a pattern first, and I say, oh, it's got a lot of very tiny pieces. Therefore, I don't need a print that is super big.
Yeah.
Like, you need your scale to be in line. Or
I agree.
if you purposely choose a big print, it's because you only want to buy one piece of fabric but have it look like you have many, because you cut it so small that it looks
Bonnie
like,
Hunter it.
yeah, it looks very different in all the little bits that you've pulled out.
That's true. Any big print will do that. Yeah.
So, okay, particular point of interest. This fabric has people on it.
Right. Do you worry about chopping off their heads?
No, but I may laugh evilly when I do.
Like anytime you have like people or,
Pets
or animals on fabric,
you get a random butt.
you get a random arm or head. And you're like chopping off their head.
Or just giving them.
You get the Queen of Hearts.
You get like Phantom of the Opera sometimes.
Chop their heads off. Yes. Or Phantom of the Opera. I don't worry about that. I mean, I think I cut Peppa up a little bit. She may not have survived.
Peppa got sent to the slaughterhouse. Sorry, Peppa. Tastes like bacon.
Peppa's Nelson barbecue.
Tastes like bacon.
So, I don't worry about that. I mean, but you're right. If you have a big novelty print or a larger scale print, you definitely want to have a pattern that will showcase that. Otherwise, you're just getting, like random arms or whatever. We do have a friend who did a one block wonder of a Marvel comic print, and there was a lot of
Crotch shots. A
I
bouquet of crotches.
wasn't gonna say that. I was
Oh,
gonna.
I'll totally go there.
I was totally gonna work some verbiage around that, let them think that without actually. But yes, that's what it was. So, but I don't worry about that. So, how do you pick your colors? You let somebody tell you because
Well-
you're doing what the other people tell you to do.
Well, no. So for the quilt that I'm doing, I knew that they wanted it, the majority of it to be pale yellow and gray. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I can work with that. I've got tonal fabric of each of those colors. Then I'm like, well, I need something to bring it together.
Yes.
So I happened from the same person that did the crotch quilt. It was like, I have fat quarters here, take them. And one of them happened to be kind of, it's a mostly gray print with some very mild dashes of color through it. And yellow's in there, but there's also a little bit of magenta and a little bit of a pale pink.
Right.
And I thought, okay, so here's this fat quarter. It does not have to be the entirety of my quilt, but I can work
that. It gives you
that.
enough to let it talk.
Gives me some guidance to be like, all right, I know they said yellow and gray, but I also know it's for girl, so I can bring in a little bit of pink and it'll be okay.
Yeah. I always look for, when I'm picking fabric to go with other fabric, I always look for those pieces that allow the two opposite colors to talk to each other. You know what I mean?
So
Like,
here
so
it's the aqua and the pink.
Like the aqua and the pink are not talking to each other on their own, but this bringing this yellow, which has some of the pink in it and has some of this aqua in it, and now it all talks to each other. And that's how I get. And then this has that also.
So if we took this out, it's
It looks
very flat.
Very flat, yeah. But you put that back in, and it allows me. Now it helps that my focus fabric has some of this yellow too, but it allows it to talk to each other. And I always think about that. And I also think about, and I think that as a new quilter, it's very easy to buy the line of fabric.
Yes.
And they look good together. I think as you get out of that new quilter, skill level, you start looking at fabric that isn't necessarily in the same line. And how do you get that to talk to each other? And I think practice is part of it.
Too, when you buy a line, there is a consistency of shape in terms of prints. Right. Where, everything is dots, or everything is flowers, or everything is stripes.
Right.
And to make a more dynamic quilt, you want to bring in some different shapes. So while the line, like if you buy a charm pack, and there's a lot of florals, and then there's also some other rounder shapes, and then some leaf prints. And you can really break it up if you say, well, I'm going to bring in a stripe, but I'm going to make the stripe be something that is a different scale. So instead of a tiny stripe to go with the tiny flower, you could do a fatter stripe.
Yeah.
And you can mix it up.
Right. And there's some decorating thing, and I'm didn't take this class or whatever, but there's a decorating thing that you can have a floral, a stripe, and a check together, and it balances stuff out. Kind of thing. So like another way to pick fabric is like you find a print that you like and it's interesting or whatever. So this is a Christmas print with moose and bears and owls and stuff on it. And squirrels.
Must find moose and squirrel.
Must find moose and squirrel. So, and it's cute, cartoony. So, another print in that same line doesn't have the little frame around it. Now, that looks good together because all the colors are the same, but that's boring.
Yeah, you need something to break that up.
So, what's interesting, I think, to do is, find a theme of that. So the theme of this is the deer. There's deer in this, like little deers.
Reindeers.
And so here's a deer that it's not a part of this line, but it brings that theme back to it. So it's allowing it to talk. And then there's another one, a little bit different.
Moose.
It's a deer. It's Rudolph.
I just like saying moose. I could eat some moose, by the way.
And then I think as you add, then you just start picking out colors, like, well, this has got some blue in it. That looks good with the original. All right, then how do I get that? And then you bring in a polka dot. And then there was that snowman. There was a snowman. Now, none of these are from the same line. And then here's a crazy one. Wow. That'll work. And then this shouldn't work, but it does.
Why shouldn't it work?
Because it's so dramatically, all the other stuff has been very whimsical, and this is more an elegant, sophisticated print. But because the colors work with it, it works. I personally don't think you should let and then I liked this one with it because of the teal. Even though it's not really winter.
There's Santa.
Well, there's
penguins.
Well, maybe
there's
is
a Christmas
winter.
tree.
Yeah, but it's got Paris.
And there's like snow from
It's
the snow globes.
Anyway, but a lot of people say, well, you can only use, 1800 reproduction prints with 1800 reproduction prints. I'm like, forget that noise.
Yeah, I love mixing up batiks and prints.
Yeah,
because
me
I think
too.
it's more dynamic.
It definitely gives you a different look. And throw some solids in there. Make it fun.
But not white or cream.
According to
2017.
I regret this decision. Every quilt that I make now that has any creamer fabric.
Get ready for the stink eye.
How about didn't we talk about this last time? Like, let's just pick
Give
a
up
random.
heroin. Yeah.
Give up heroin. Let's give up crack. Meth. We could give up meth. There you go. Because I'd be successful. Just saying. It's all about the journey. There you go. So, how do you pick fabric? You made me tell how I did it. How do you do it?
It's like pretty much like that. What she said.
Do you get overwhelmed at the fabric store? It's such a. Do you get overwhelmed at the fabric store?
No.
I see people get overwhelmed.
I tend to commit early and go with it.
Your tunnel
No, it's
vision?
not tunnel vision. It's like I see that fabric. I'm going to go with my gut. I need to trust my gut. Sometimes my gut's wrong. I'm not going to say it's ever.
Sometimes my gut's wrong.
But I know me that if I am in a store for too long, we talked about this, like the whole grocery store thing.
Yeah, we did.
Where
You're
if
like, and I'm done.
it's like if I can't make the decision, then the decision is not meant to be made right now, and I will just leave. And there you go. The end.
The end.
So yeah, I tend to find a feature fabric or a print fabric that brings in the colors that mimic what I'm going for. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I either know I've got stuff in my stash that will work, or I find accompanying fabric at the store. Typically, I don't buy a lot of fabric for a new project because I have already so much fabric in my house. I am at the point now where I
just want permission to buy more fabric.
I have used, I have taken 600 yards of fabric out over the last 4 years from my stash. And so it is significantly smaller.
To me.
It is significantly smaller than it
I
was.
think I've added 600 yards of fabric.
And it's now to the point where it's like, okay, I see where the colors that I'm attracted to are where I need to bring in. Because right now I'm left with some stuff that I'm kind of like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, and I'm at the point
you
where
purposely said, I've got this many scraps. I need to make a quilt out of this.
Right. And I need yardage sometimes to accompany that for borders or for whatever.
Right.
And I'm at a point where I'm looking at it like, I don't think I'm ever going to use this for anything.
I'm just going to get rid of it.
But I don't know where to send it. Like, I may have a lead. I'm going to figure it out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of the shops that we work with frequently sends things to impoverished areas for quilters to take advantage of.
There you go.
And I don't want to be like, hey, will they take my ugly fabric? Because to me, it's ugly. Other people might love it. But I would rather it go to a new home. Yeah, I would rather it go to a good home where it's going to get used.
Yeah.
And if it's not to my taste, it's because I am drawn to brighter, richer colors. And this is more of a pastel, or it's a print I don't know what to do with because it's tones that don't pair with like fuchsia or teal or,
I buy fabric and I'm like, why? And then, 3 years later, you're like, why did I buy that? Like, really? I liked it. What made me love that to purchase?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was on sale. Apparently it is, because I got some fabric in there that says it was on sale. But I think what I was attracted to when I first started quilting and what I'm attracted to now has changed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, you started quilting when it was dusty rose.
no, I
green.
didn't.
That was your 80s colors. Your first quilt with some chintz and some green and some dusty rose.
That was bought. Yes. Well, that's true.
Tell me again how I'm right.
I did that in 90.
Mhm.
So it was at the end of the 80s. But
My prom dress
that
in 92 was dusty rose.
I took one class. Well, I took one class from the pastor's wife of the church I was going to at the time, and I didn't quilt for 10 years until I moved down here in 2000. So that's 10 years of stuff changes.
Dusty rose. Blush and baby pants.
I didn't have blush in it. It's all green. It's all that 100 green.
Yeah.
It's just Waverly fabric, which is old. So anyway, I still have some of that fabric too in my stash.
You should probably get rid of that.
Well, it's collector's item now because it's polished cotton. You can't buy polished cotton anymore. You're looking at me like you don't know what polished cotton is.
No, I know what it is, but you can totally buy it now.
Really?
Yeah.
Where? No, I don't know where. Where? Like Gail King or something? Or Gail K?
Gail K. Any home deck store still has it.
See, I don't
Fabric
go in
and Fringe
home.
Warehouse. Joann's has it.
I don't go into those stores. I haven't been to Gail.
It doesn't mean they cease to exist.
That's true.
So yes,
I don't shop there.
chintz and polished cotton's still a thing.
Still a thing. Oh, did I tell you? I think I told. I got to appraise a 1790s quilt this week. Pretty cool. It's incredible to see something that old. It was and for how old it was in good condition. It was incredible. Somebody walked into a quilt museum and said, I don't know if you'll like this or not. It's kind of a smelly quilt. Would you guys want to have it? It was a 1790s border per se quilt, which is made out of chintz. That's where that.
Oh, speaking of.
That's how I got there.
So this came up on the virtual stitch-in December, and I meant to ask you, but I didn't. No. Bill Volkening's article, he wrote about proof and documentation of the fact that quilting was done by the upper classes and not out of scraps from dresses and all that, because the effort required to make a quilt required more time that only those in the upper class had to commit to it versus, oh gosh, we need to go like find food and make food and
right,
and which is in conflict to kind of the lore of quilting of like, well, people just took their scraps and they made nice quilts.
I think that's
in
different times of our history, though. I think you would say in the 1930s, it was very much people took their scraps and made quilts out of it. But that was the 1930s and the Depression. So that's very different than the 1700s where, only the upper crust could buy the chintz because it's so expensive to have and that's why it's border per se, because they would cut it up and spread it out. So, this quilt that I saw and got to appraise was, I think it was like 100 by 100 inches. It was huge. And a lot of people don't think that the beds were even that big. Well, they made quilts for the size beds that they had. And the beds were bigger then because more people slept in them together. Families slept together than just, two people in a king-size bed now, kind of thing.
Well, 2 people and 3 cats in my case.
We had 2 people in a Soluki last night because it's getting colder, and Josie thinks she should be in bed because the coldness has happened, and she's much more snuggly with cold weather. So anyway, so I agree with him, but what I get asked a lot for quilt documentation and is people, and I think it's because we live in the South, people say, well, this is a slave quilt. It was made by slaves. Oh. And I can't prove that. And any good certified quilt appraisal will tell you that unless you have documentation that says in a diary or a letter or some kind of family, lore that says this was made by Sally, owned by, a house slave or whatever, we can't prove that it was made by slaves. Not to say that didn't happen. I'm very sure that it did.
Yeah.
But I can't, there are very few quilts that we can prove and document. We can infer, but that we can document that were made by slaves. And I get a lot of questions about that. And I'm sure it's because I live in Georgia.
Yeah.
But we lost a lot of quilts because of the South and the Civil War. You know, they were used up, and the Civil War, you know, destroyed just that part of our history. Destroyed. We lost a lot of quilts in the South, whereas in the North, they've got quilts because they didn't go through all the fighting and all that kind of stuff that happened more in this part of the country.
Could you also
and
not
all the goods were used
attribute it to weather, where humid conditions and more in a longer insect season will destroy more quilts versus cold storage?
That could definitely be a part of it. But looking at the amount of quilts that we have from the 1840s to the 1870s in the South are not there compared to the amount of quilts that they have of that age in New England area. So, and it's because this is war-torn area. So it is what it is. We just don't have as many. But I do get questions about that all the time. People will say, well, I just know this has been in my family and it's a slave quilt. And I'm like, it's probably not. Not to say that it wasn't, but unless you can document it, I can't include that in the appraisal. So kind of deal. But I don't get to see quilts that old. So it was really cool to see a 1790 Berta per se. I mean, it was just incredible. Every once in a while, I get to see these gems, and that was a gem that I got to see this week. So it's fun. That was cool.
Cool.
So I know that has nothing to do with what we were talking about.
Well, we were talking about picking fabric. So
they did that. They picked fabric. Give us chance.
On that note, let us know how you pick fabric for your project. What's been the best use of color that you've had in a quilt? So that's going to be it for today's episode. Our show could not happen without 77 Peaches Enterprises, your one-stop shop for creative support.
We'd like to thank 77 Peaches, Big Think Production, Cotton Notch Studio, Hip to Be a Square for being part of The Stitch. And you can find their sites on our site, thestitchtvshow.com. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, please email us at info@thestitchtvshow.com.
So if you enjoyed the show, please like it on YouTube, share your thoughts on this episode's topics on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and tag us with #TheStitchTVShow. The next virtual sew-in is Friday, February 10th at 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern, broadcast on our channel here on YouTube and Google+. My podcast, Hip to Be a Square, is out Fridays at hiptobeasquarepodcast.com or on iTunes or Google Play.
And you can email us with questions or comments at info@thestitchtvshow.com and buy our patterns at the pattern shop, shop.thestitchtvshow.com.
All those details and more can be found on our website. Tune in next time for more quilting chat with friends.